Welcome to the Cup of Joe Wrestling Show.
Cup of Joe Wrestling Show?
With Joey Harris. A podcast for the wrestling fan on the go. So take your favorite beverage of choice and join Joey as he takes a look at some of the biggest shows on the WWE Network.
Welcome to the Cup of Joe Wrestling Show. I'm your host, Joey Harris, and we are broadcasting from makeshift studios in the shadow of South Central Virginia. Follow the show on Twitter at Cup of Joe Pod. Email the show at cupofjoewrestlingshow@gmail.com. If you like the show, please leave a review on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, or your preferred podcast app. I would really appreciate it, and it helps people find the show. Folks, back again. Had a fantastic weekend. My friend TJ was in a play, The Sound of Music. He played Max Detweiler, so went to see him on that. And if you follow me on social media, I'll give you those plugs. At the end of the show, you'll see a picture of me and him. So had a great time there. Came back with my wife and my in-laws. We went to the play and came back the next day. Going to Trader Joe's, I wanted to pick up, I have gotten really into crumpets and got them at Trader Joe's, went back, could not get them, couldn't find them anywhere. So got those, or didn't get those rather, went looking for those, got some other groceries, and then went to Krispy Kreme, and my wife had a coupon where if you buy a dozen, you get a dozen. And that doesn't help your weight loss efforts any, folks. So just a helpful hint there from me to you. What am I watching? What am I reading? Still watching Lost, first season, almost at the end of that. I'm reading, I'm a big Stephen King fan, and I'm trying to get through Fairy Tale, the book that came out last year. And every time I go to read one or two pages, something happens. So I have to carve out some time because I really want to get through and finish this book. I'm so far into it now that I have to stick with it and see how it ends, but looking forward to that. Anyway, let's get into it. Today we look at the first Saturday Night's Main Event shown on Fox, as we look at the Saturday Night's Main Event from February the 8th, 1992. This was Saturday Night's Main Event number 30. It was shown on Fox on February the 8th, 1992. Recorded January 27th, 1992 from the Lubbock Municipal Coliseum in Lubbock, Texas. It did an 8.2 rating on Fox. We start out with the Saturday Night's Main Event Fox intro. Vince McMahon and Bobby Heenan welcome us to Saturday Night's Main Event. They preview what is coming up on the show. We start out WWF Intercontinental Championship match, Roddy Piper versus the Mountie with Jimmy Hart. Piper with a great ovation when he comes out. He holds the title up high before giving it to the referee, and Hart grabs it out of the referee's hands. He gives it to the Mountie, who holds the title up high. Hart and the Mountie take turns attacking Piper as the referee gets the title and gets it out of the ring. Mountie throws Piper out of the ring, but he lands on his feet. He comes back in and hits both heels with a double clothesline. Hart driven to the outside, and Piper covers Mountie for a 2 count. Mountie rolls to the outside to regroup. Piper follows him and runs Mountie and Hart's heads together. Piper throws Mountie back in the ring as they announce the winner of the match will meet Bret Hart for the title at WrestleMania. Piper tries to get back in the ring, but Hart grabs his boot, allowing Mountie to get an advantage. Mountie kicking Piper. Mountie puts Piper in the Tree of Woe and kicks him several times as we see an inset promo of Bret Hart talking about meeting the winner at WrestleMania. Mountie gets a 2 count. Mountie with an Irish whip and a back elbow. Mountie gets another 2 count. Mountie with a scoop slam. Mountie goes for a scoop slam, but Piper gets his knees up. Piper comes back with some right hands and goes for a bulldog, but Mountie pushes off and runs Piper into the referee to knock the referee down. Mountie with a pile driver on Piper. Hart grabs a cup of water from the timekeeper's table and gives it to the Mountie. Mountie dumps the water on Piper and then gets the shock stick from Hart. He shocks Piper, but it has no effect on Piper. He gets up and hits Mountie with the right hand and gets the shock stick. Piper throws Hart out of the ring. Mountie begging off, but gets shocked by Piper. The referee comes to and counts the pin. Piper takes his shirt off and he has a shock-proof vest on. He says, "I don't think so, 'cause Roddy don't play that." Vince says, "And neither does homie, Hot Rod, and I am embarrassed." Vince has to kiss up to the Fox executives, I guess. Flashback to the end of the Royal Rumble. They play the redubbed commentary that is total BS. They then replayed the WrestleMania 8 press conference, and it was pointed out on Between the Sheets several weeks back that Jack Tunney totally looked at Sid Justice before saying Hulk Hogan's name. They then showed the fallout from the press conference and Sid Justice's subsequent apology. Sean Mooney interviews Hulk Hogan and Sid Justice. They say they are a team and on the same page. Tag team match. Hulk Hogan and Sid Justice with Brutus Beefcake versus Ric Flair and The Undertaker with Paul Bearer and Mr. Perfect. A Hogan chant goes out. Justice and Flair start, and spoiler alert, Justice is at ringside with the two men he will main event WrestleMania with in Hulk Hogan and The Undertaker. The bell rings and Flair stalls and avoids locking up with Justice. They finally lock up and Flair rakes the eyes. Justice with a reversal of a corner whip and a backdrop. He follows that up with a hip toss and Flair rolls to the outside. He finally gets back in and Hogan tagged in. He gets a corner whip and a backdrop on Flair, then a hip toss to Flair and The Undertaker when he comes in. Hogan runs Undertaker into Justice's knee pad and Justice tagged back in. Undertaker tries to lift Justice but can't. Justice then scoop slams Undertaker. Justice runs Undertaker into Hogan's knee pad and Hogan tagged back in. He slams Undertaker and then slams Flair when he comes in. Very formulaic match. Hogan then clotheslines both heels and they are reeling, so he takes the opportunity to pose to the crowd. The heels roll to the outside to regroup. Hogan with a side headlock to Undertaker when Undertaker gets back in. Hogan then tags Justice in. Justice with a running kick to Undertaker and then an Irish whip to Undertaker. Justice drops his head and Undertaker jabs his throat. The heels double clothesline Justice. Hogan breaks up a Flair pin attempt on Justice. The heels with a double atomic drop to Justice. Hogan again breaks up a pin attempt, this time by Undertaker. Undertaker with a throat thrust and then Flair and Undertaker double team Justice, so now all four men in the ring. Double big boot to Flair and a double clothesline to Undertaker. Hogan then poses as the crowd goes wild and Justice is just staring at Hogan. When they come back from the commercial, Hogan wants Flair to come into the ring while Undertaker sneaks in the ring and attacks Justice from behind. The heels double teaming Justice in their corner. That brings Hogan in and the referee gets him out. Undertaker hits Justice in the throat from the top rope while Flair holds him. Heels continue to double team Justice every time Hogan attempts to get in and is cut off by the referee. Justice finally gets the upper hand and runs the heels' heads together. Justice grabs Flair, tags Hogan in, and holds Flair for Hogan to hit. Hogan taking turns to hit both heels. He then goes over to where Paul Bearer has gotten up on the apron to knock him off. Mr. Perfect grabs Hogan by his leg, allowing Flair to clip Hogan's knee from behind. Flair going to work on the knee to set Hogan up for the figure four. He puts the figure four on Hogan. Vince McMahon saying Hogan reaching for the tag and Justice has turned around to adjust his knee pad, and Heenan says Hogan wasn't close enough, which is exactly correct. There's no way that Hogan could have made that tag. Hogan turns the move over. Flair releases the hold and tags Undertaker in. Hogan trying to get to his corner, and at this point I will concede that Justice is making no effort to tag Hogan. Undertaker with a throat thrust to Hogan. Undertaker with an Irish whip and a flying clothesline. Flair tagged in and chops Hogan. Flair goes up top and gets caught and thrown off, so take a shot if you're drinking at home. Hogan again tries to tag, but Justice won't and Undertaker drags Hogan away. Undertaker has Hogan in the heels corner while the crowd boos Justice and he calls it music to his ears. Hogan gets away, but goes to the wrong corner as Flair is tagged in. Flair chops Hogan in the corner, but Hogan hulks up. He goes after Flair, but gets double teamed when Undertaker comes in. Hogan comes back with a double clothesline after being corner whipped. Hogan goes for the tag. He finally gets to the corner and Justice drops down instead of tagging. Justice then leaves the ringside area. Beefcake goes and pleads with Justice to come back. Justice threatens Beefcake and Heenan says if Justice hits Beefcake, it'll be like a hockey game with a face-off. Justice tells Beefcake to have Hogan help himself. The heels double team Hogan and Flair throws referee Earl Hebner to get disqualified. Beefcake comes in and the heels start to come after him, but he gets away and Hogan cleans house on the heels. Flair goes up and over the turnbuckle and clotheslined off the apron so you can take another shot. Sean Mooney interviews Sid Justice and asks him why he turned on Hulk Hogan. Justice tells him to shut up. He's still mad that Hulk Hogan was made the number one contender in it. Says Hogan couldn't beat Ric Flair on his best day and couldn't beat Sid Justice on his worst day because he's the man who rules the world. Hulk Hogan says he wants justice while making his way back to the dressing room. Mean Gene interviews Hulk Hogan and Brutus Beefcake. Hogan calls Sid Justice a liar and says Justice turned his back on Hulk Hogan, but he then says thank God for Brutus Beefcake. They then lay it on thick about Beefcake's accent and Hogan being there for him. Jim Duggan and Sergeant Slaughter versus the Beverly Brothers, Bo and Blake with the Genius. Duggan and Blake start and it's all Blake at the beginning. Corner whip to Duggan, but Slaughter cushions the blow and Duggan comes out with a clothesline. Duggan with a side headlock, Blake pushes off and Bo uses the Genius's scroll to hit Duggan in the back. That brings Slaughter in. The Beverly Brothers double team Duggan while the referee was getting Slaughter out. Bo tagged in and gets a 1 count. Bo with an Irish whip, but drops his head too early, and Duggan kicks him in the face. Both Slaughter and Blake tagged in. Slaughter with a corner whip and a backdrop. All four in briefly as Slaughter has an abdominal stretch on. Then Slaughter with a backbreaker and a pin attempt, and all four in again. The Genius passes the scroll in again, and Slaughter gets it and hits Blake with it. Duggan clotheslines Blake, and Slaughter gets the pin. Flashback to the history between Jake Roberts and Randy Savage. Roberts then says if Elizabeth shows up tonight, he will slap her again. Mean Gene interviews Randy Savage. He says he knows what he is going to do to Jake Roberts tonight. Jake Roberts versus Randy Savage. Savage gets a great reaction when he comes out. He attacks Roberts and runs him into the ring post on the outside. Roberts trying to get away, but Savage is intense here. It looks like he is trying to rip Roberts' face off on the outside. He then throws Roberts in the ring and then throws a chair in, but referee Earl Hebner throws the chair back out. Savage choking Roberts with his boot. He then brings an elbow down on Roberts' throat. Roberts' nose is broken and he is bleeding from it as Savage hits him with a high knee from behind. Roberts gets an advantage and throws Savage over the top rope. Savage back in and Roberts runs him into a corner post. He throws Savage out again. Roberts then comes out and throws Savage into the ring post. He picks Savage up and runs him in again. They get back in the ring, and Savage reverses a corner whip and gets a back elbow. He goes up top, but gets caught and Roberts with a shot as Savage comes off. Robert hits a DDT. Roberts then sits in the corner as Hebner is counting Savage. Savage up at 8, so Roberts hits him with a short clothesline. Roberts goes for another DDT, but Savage backdrops him to the outside. Savage with a double axe handle that drives Roberts into the guardrail throat first. Savage throws Roberts back in, hits the flying elbow, and pins Roberts. He goes up top again, but the ring fills up with officials trying to stop him. He hits Roberts with another elbow drop and then grabs the ring bell. Roberts crawling up the aisle as Savage pushes officials aside to get to Roberts. Elizabeth comes out to a big ovation. Roberts is shown through the curtain saying it's not over yet. They wonder what that means as they sign off from Texas. A week later during Superstars, it was revealed that Roberts prepared to hit Miss Elizabeth with a steel chair as soon as she stepped backstage, only for The Undertaker to prevent the attack and allow Savage to hit Roberts with a chair of his own. Final thoughts. This was a quick show with it only being an hour with commercials. This was a total setup for WrestleMania. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at TheJoeyHarris. You can support the show at paypal.me/cupofjoepod. Thank you for joining me this week. This is Joey saying so long from the heart of Virginia.
The Cup of Joe Wrestling Show is a production of Baby Kangaroo Media.